Oh, God, what a dumb thing to say, right? I mean, you say it, you play it well, and then right away,
Dianne Keaton's life was filled with contradictions. She lived in plain sight, yet somehow kept the most important parts of her life just out of reach. She built an iconic career, avoided marriage, stood firm in moments that divided Hollywood, and remained deeply private to the very end. But after her passing, it wasn't a film clip or an award that stopped everyone's attention. It was a tribute from someone who truly knew her. Keanu Reeves rarely speaks for effect, so when he opened up about Dianne, people listened, and what he said revealed more than decades of interviews ever had. The tragic passing of Dianne Keaton. For more than 50 years, Dianne Keaton was part of the background rhythm of American film. Her work spanned generations, genres, and eras, which is why the news on October 11, 2025, landed with such force. That morning, confirmation came that Dianne Keaton had died at the age of 79. Within hours, the industry and the public were processing a loss that felt both sudden and deeply personal. Keaton passed away in California at St. John's Health Center in Santa Monica. Her family confirmed that the cause of death was pneumonia. The information released was clear and consistent, and no additional medical complications were cited. Reports indicated that the illness progressed quickly, and there had been little public indication beforehand that her health was in serious danger. Dianne Keaton had remained a familiar presence well into her later years, appearing occasionally, staying connected to the industry, and never fully retreating from public life. Hence, the finality of her death was difficult for many to absorb. Soon after, the Keaton family released a brief statement. In it, they thanked fans for what they described as extraordinary messages of love and support. The statement offered gratitude rather than explanation, and it reflected the same composed and direct tone Keaton herself had always favored. She is survived by her two children, Dexter and Duke Keaton. Dianne was always reserved when it came to family, choosing to keep that part of her life largely outside public view. A private funeral was held in California, attended by family members and close friends. The service was intimate and not publicly announced. That decision was widely understood as intentional, reflecting a life spent drawing clear lines between public work and private moments. Dianne Keaton's passing marked the end of a career that never followed a predictable path. She avoided easy repetition, resisted typecasting, and built her reputation on intelligence and individuality rather than spectacle. Even the way her life concluded followed that same controlled and private pattern. For viewers who grew up watching her, the loss felt like the closing of a long chapter, especially because she had always been reliable. Someone whose work could be returned to again and again, each time revealing something new. Yet, amidst the outpouring of love and tributes by friends, families, and colleagues, one single tribute carried so much emotional weight. People were already reflecting on Keaton's body of work, revisiting performances, and sharing memories shaped by her films. And this emotional tribute by a colleague turned friend only deepened that reflection. To understand why that final tribute mattered so much, it's important to understand the journey that led there, the choices that shaped her rise, the risks she took early on, and the career she built by doing things her own way. Dianne Keaton's rise to fame. Dianne Keaton was born on January 5, 1946, in Los Angeles, California. But growing up there didn't automatically open doors. Acting wasn't something she stepped into easily. She had to train and work hard towards it. She studied at Santa Ana College and Orange Coast College before moving on to the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York. That choice shaped her early career because the Neighborhood Playhouse focused heavily on discipline and technique. Students learned how to break down scripts, control their performances, and stay grounded in character. Keaton didn't chase attention during this period. She focused on learning how to act. Her first real experience came on stage. Performing live forced her to develop confidence quickly. There were no retakes and no safety net. This experience helped her understand timing, presence, and how to hold an audience's attention. When film roles eventually started coming her way, Keaton was prepared. Her breakthrough came in 1972 with The Godfather. Cast as Kay Adams, Diane Keaton played a character who stood apart from the criminal world around her. Kay was calm, observant, and emotionally grounded. Keaton's performance gave the film balance. While much of the story focused on power and violence, her character showed the cost of that world. The role immediately changed how Hollywood saw her. After The Godfather, her career moved quickly. One of the most important chapters came through her work with Woody Allen. Keaton appeared in 8 of his films, building a creative partnership that defined much of the 1970s. Their most famous collaboration was Annie Hall in 1977. The film was different from traditional romantic comedies. It felt loose, personal, and real. Keaton's performance stood out because it didn't feel scripted. She was funny without forcing jokes, and emotional without being dramatic. Audiences connected to the character, and critics took notice. The role earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress, and confirmed that she could lead a film on her own terms. What made Keaton's career last was her range. She didn't stay in one type of role. She moved between drama and comedy without losing momentum. She returned to the Godfather series for its sequels, while also taking on demanding projects like Reds in 1981. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, she reached a wider audience. Films like Baby Boom and Father of the Bride showed a warmer, more approachable side of her. These weren't small roles. They were leading performances that carried entire films. Years later, Something's Gotta Give proved she could still command the screen well into adulthood, earning praise from both critics and audiences. Keaton also took on roles behind the camera. She directed and produced projects, gaining more control over storytelling and creative decisions. Acting remained central to her career, but she was no longer limited to one role in the process. Awards followed steadily. She won an Academy Award, a BAFTA Award, and 2 Golden Globe Awards. She also received nominations for 2 Emmy Awards and a Tony Award, showing her reach across film, television, and theater. Later, her career was honored as a whole when she received the Film at Lincoln Center Gala Tribute in 2007 and the AFI Life Achievement Award in 2017. Outside her work, Keaton became known for her personal style. Her wide-brimmed hats, tailored suits, and layered outfits stood out in an industry built on trends. The look was practical and confident. Over time, it became part of how people recognized her. But to truly understand Dianne Keaton, you have to look beyond the roles and into the struggles she faced away from the spotlight. Behind the awards, the acclaim, and the carefully built career were personal challenges that shaped her decisions just as much as her talent did. Dianne's personal struggles. For all the confidence Dianne Keaton projected on screen, much of her life away from the camera was shaped by challenges she rarely shared with the public. Many of her personal struggles began long before her career took off and followed her quietly as she rose through Hollywood. One of Keaton's earliest health battles came when she was just 21 years old. She was diagnosed with basal cell carcinoma, a form of skin cancer. At the time, she was still finding her footing as an actor, studying, auditioning, and trying to establish herself in a competitive industry. The diagnosis was serious, but Keaton approached it privately. She underwent treatment and continued working. choosing not to make her health part of her public identity. Years later, she faced another diagnosis: squamous cell carcinoma, a different and more aggressive form of skin cancer. Once again, Keaton dealt with it directly and quietly. She followed medical advice, received treatment, and returned to her work without interruption. Colleagues often noted her professionalism during this period. She showed up prepared, focused, and committed, even while managing the physical and emotional weight of repeated cancer scares. These experiences shaped how Keaton viewed her body and her health. She became more cautious about sun exposure and later spoke openly about skin cancer awareness, especially for younger people who underestimated the risks. But for much of her career, the public saw none of this. The work continued, and the performances never hinted at what she was carrying privately. Long before she became a household name, Keaton battled bulimia for several years. At the time, this disorder was rarely discussed openly, especially in Hollywood. There was little public understanding and even less sympathy. For Keaton, the disorder affected both her physical health and her self-image during a period when she was still forming her sense of identity. Hollywood pressure played a role. As her career began to accelerate, expectations around her appearance intensified. Her weight, clothing, posture, and presentation were constantly scrutinized. Keaton later acknowledged that this environment made it easier for unhealthy habits to take root. The disorder was not visible to the public, but it influenced her daily life and added another layer of strain to an already demanding profession. Recovery took time, support, and personal resolve. Eventually, Keaton overcame this struggle and reached a point where she could speak about it honestly. When she did, she discussed it in straightforward terms, emphasizing how common such struggles were and how isolating they could feel. By choosing to talk openly later in life, she helped reduce stigma at a time when few public figures were willing to do so. Throughout these years, Keaton lived under constant public attention. Her choices, her appearance, and even her personality were analyzed. She was labeled quirky, unconventional, or eccentric, often without recognition of the discipline and resilience beneath that image. While audiences saw humor and warmth, Keaton was often managing private battles that had little room on a movie set. Despite this, she rarely allowed personal hardship to disrupt her work. Directors and co-stars described her as reliable and prepared. She arrived on set knowing her material and focused on the task at hand. If she was struggling, it stayed off camera. That separation between personal life and professional responsibility became one of her defining traits. After years of fighting private battles with her health and self-image, Dianne Keaton learned how much control she needed over her own life. But that need for stability wasn't just about her career. It was also about how she loved. Despite long, meaningful relationships and deep emotional connections, Dianne Keaton never married. And that decision, like so many others she made, was tied closely to the life she had already lived. The reason she never got married. For much of her life, Dianne Keaton was asked the same question again and again. Why didn't she ever get married? The question followed her through interviews, personality profiles, and decades of public attention. Her answer, over time, remained consistent. She never felt compelled to marry. She described herself plainly as a single woman all her life, not as a rejection of love, but as an honest description of how she lived. Keaton built her adult life around independence. From the earliest years of her career, she structured her world to allow freedom of movement, creative choice, and personal space. Marriage, as an institution, was never part of that vision. While it was not something she resisted, she simply didn't see it as necessary for fulfillment. This outlook shaped how she approached family life as well. In her 50s, Keaton made a decision that surprised many people. She chose to become a mother through adoption. Her daughter, Dexter Keaton White, was born on December 15, 1995, and adopted in 1996. A few years later, her son Duke Keaton was born on February 8, 2000, and adopted in 2001. Keaton spoke openly about how transformative motherhood was for her. She once described adoption as the smartest thing she ever did. Becoming a parent later in life brought structure and meaning that she hadn't experienced earlier. It also fit her life on her own terms. She raised both children as a single mother, balancing work in Hollywood with family responsibilities without relying on a partner. Her parenting style reflected the same values that shaped her career. She prioritized stability, presence, and honesty. She worked when she needed to, stepped back when she wanted to, and kept her children largely out of the public eye. For Keaton, family life did not require marriage to feel complete. That same mindset extended to her romantic relationships. Keaton had several high-profile romances, many of them with some of the most famous men in Hollywood. But none of them altered her core belief that independence mattered more than traditional expectations. Diane Keaton's relationships were closely tied to her work. Most of the important people in her personal life entered it through acting jobs, long rehearsals, and film sets. These relationships didn't follow a traditional path, and none of them were short headlines or passing moments. They unfolded over time and ended for clear, practical reasons. Her first well-known relationship was with Woody Allen in the early 1970s. They met while working together on the Broadway production of Play It Again, Sam. At that point, Keaton was still early in her career and focused on building experience. Allen was already established, and the two developed a close working relationship that soon became personal. Their partnership moved from the stage to film. Keaton appeared in several of Allen's movies during that decade, including Play It Again, Sam, and later Annie Hall. Their chemistry on screen came from real familiarity. They understood each other's timing and rhythm, and that made their scenes work naturally. While the romantic side of their relationship didn't last long, it overlapped with some of the most important early years of Keaton's career. When the relationship ended, it did so without conflict. They continued working together, which was unusual in Hollywood. This showed that the breakup was respectful. Over the years, they stayed friends, and Keaton often acknowledged how important that early collaboration had been to her development as an actor. Later in the 1970s, Keaton became involved with Warren Beatty. They met during the making of Reds, a large and demanding film that Beatty directed and starred in alongside Keaton. The production took years and required constant collaboration, which brought them close. Their relationship was intense and highly visible. Beatty was already known for his romantic history, and their pairing drew attention inside and outside the industry. People close to the production described the relationship as passionate but difficult to sustain. Both were deeply committed to their work, and neither lived a simple or predictable life. Eventually, the relationship ended. Keaton later spoke about Beatty with respect, calling him brilliant, but she also made it clear that their relationship couldn't last. Their lifestyles and long-term needs didn't line up. When they separated, there was no public fallout, and they both moved forward without drama. The longest and most meaningful relationship in Keaton's life was with Al Pacino. They met on the set of The Godfather in 1972, where Keaton played Kay Adams opposite Pacino's Michael Corleone. Their connection developed during filming and continued long after the movie was finished. Unlike her other relationships, this one lasted on and off for many years. Their schedules were demanding, and both were deeply involved in their careers. The relationship wasn't constant, but it remained emotionally strong. Keaton later described Pacino as her great love, a phrase that reflected the depth of their bond, rather than how long they were together at any one time. The relationship ended because they wanted different things. Pacino didn't want to settle down, and Keaton eventually realized she wanted more stability. She spoke honestly about that difference later in life. There was no sudden break or public argument. They simply reached a point where the relationship couldn't continue in the same way. Even after the romantic relationship ended, they stayed close. They supported each other's work and remained friends, which spoke to the respect they shared. Across all three relationships, a clear pattern remained. Keaton didn't move from one relationship to another looking for marriage or permanence. Her romantic life was visible, but she never built her identity around it. The relationships mattered, but they were never the center of who she was or how she lived. As the years passed, the public curiosity surrounding her love life never fully faded. But Keaton did not revisit the question defensively. She answered it plainly. She had relationships. She had a family. She built a full life without marriage, and she was comfortable with that choice. That comfort, however, did not shield her from scrutiny. Her relationships, her independence, and her refusal to conform often placed her at the center of public discussion. And at one point in her career, that attention turned into something far more disruptive, a moment that shook her image and pulled her private life into an unexpected spotlight. The scandal that shook her. For most of her career, Dianne Keaton was known for one thing above everything else: the work. She wasn't a headline regular. She didn't chase controversy. Her interviews focused on films, characters, and craft, not personal opinions or public battles. That reputation stayed intact for decades, until one scandal changed how people talked about her. That moment came when longtime filmmaker Woody Allen became the center of serious accusations involving his daughter Dylan Farrow. As the allegations resurfaced and gained renewed attention, especially during the rise of the #MeToo movement, Hollywood reacted fast. Actors who had worked with Allen publicly expressed regret. Studios distanced themselves. Some even refused to promote or release projects connected to him. Longtime collaborators made it clear they were stepping away. The industry was drawing a line, but surprisingly, Dianne Keaton didn't follow it. Instead of staying silent or slowly backing away, she publicly defended Allen. She made it clear that she believed him and that their friendship still mattered to her. The message spread quickly, and within hours, it became one of the most talked-about celebrity responses of that period. The reaction was immediate and intense. This was happening at a time when public attention was focused heavily on accountability, power, and belief. Many people expected silence at the very least. Yet, what they got from Keaton was open loyalty. For critics, that loyalty felt misplaced. For supporters, it felt consistent. But almost everyone agreed on one thing: Dianne Keaton had chosen a side. Social media exploded. Commentators questioned her decision. Fans who had admired her for decades felt conflicted. Activists called her stance disappointing. Others defended her right to speak honestly about a personal relationship. The debate moved fast, and Keaton's name stayed at the center of it. Media coverage followed closely. Headlines didn't just report what she said. They unpacked her entire history with Allen. Articles revisited their early work together in the 1970s, their personal relationship, and how closely their careers had once been linked. The narrative immediately shifted. Keaton wasn't being treated as a distant observer. She was framed as someone defending a man who had played a major role in her rise to fame. Inside the industry, the response was split. Some actors privately agreed with Keaton but avoided speaking publicly. Others openly criticized her stance and distanced themselves from Allen entirely. What made Keaton stand out was not just what she said. It was that she didn't back away afterward. She didn't delete her statement. She didn't soften it. She didn't return later with clarifications or revised language. She didn't even try to reframe the situation in interviews. Her position stayed exactly the same from the moment she stated it. That decision kept her in the spotlight far longer than she was used to. Dianne Keaton had spent most of her career avoiding public drama. Now, her name appeared regularly in conversations that had nothing to do with film. Discussions about her work were suddenly paired with questions about belief, loyalty, and responsibility. The focus shifted from her performances to her judgment. The effect on her reputation wasn't simple. She was still widely respected as an actress. Her body of work didn't change, but the way people talked about her did. For some, her defense of Allen felt like loyalty taken too far. For others, it felt like honesty and standing by a friend despite intense pressure. Keaton didn't engage in public debate about it. She didn't campaign or argue her case in detail. She simply acknowledged the controversy and moved on. That silence frustrated critics and satisfied no one completely. But it was consistent with how she had always handled public attention. Years later, when her life and career were being reassessed, that controversy resurfaced briefly. It was mentioned alongside her achievements, not replacing them, but complicating the picture. And yet, when the time came to say goodbye, none of the debates were what people remembered. What lingered was a quiet, unexpected, and deeply personal tribute. It came from someone who knew Dianne Keaton beyond the roles and headlines. And the way he spoke about her stopped people mid-conversation and reframed how her life was understood. Keanu Reeves' emotional tribute. Keanu Reeves and Dianne Keaton's iconic connection began on a film set. But it didn't end there. Their professional collaboration started in 2003 with Something's Gotta Give, a film that paired them in an unlikely but memorable dynamic. Directed by Nancy Meyers, the film cast Keaton as Erica Barry, a successful playwright navigating love later in life, and Reeves as Dr. Julian Mercer, a younger man drawn to her intelligence and confidence. The pairing could have felt forced or gimmicky. Instead, it worked. Audiences responded to the ease between them, and critics noted how natural the relationship felt on screen. Their chemistry was rooted in balance. Reeves played the role with restraint, never overpowering the scene, while Keaton anchored it with experience and precision. The dynamic felt playful without being unserious and emotional without being sentimental. That balance became one of the film's defining strengths. The movie performed strongly at the box office and became one of the most talked-about romantic films of the early 2000s. For Keaton, the role marked another career high point, earning her an Academy Award nomination and reaffirming her ability to lead major studio films decades into her career. Behind the scenes, the collaboration left a lasting impression on Keanu Reeves. He spoke often about Keaton's generosity as a scene partner and her commitment to the work. Colleagues noted that she approached the set with focus and warmth, creating an environment where actors felt supported rather than managed. After filming wrapped, their relationship didn't fade. Reeves and Keaton remained friendly, crossing paths at industry events and maintaining a visible mutual respect. Years later, their appearance together at the Academy Awards in 2020 drew attention because of how they interacted like people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. In interviews over the years, Reeves consistently highlighted what set Keaton apart. He spoke about her uniqueness as an artist and her ability to remain individual in an industry that often pressures conformity. When news of Keaton's death reached Reeves, He was in the middle of promoting a new project. Even in that setting, his reaction stood out. While speaking at a film premiere in New York, he acknowledged her passing and spoke about the opportunity they had shared working together. His remarks focused on her as both an artist and a person, emphasizing her originality and presence, rather than just her fame. Later, during a television appearance, Reeves recalled observing Keaton at work alongside Jack Nicholson during Something's Gotta Give. He described watching their scenes come together and the level of craft involved. The memory was described as a learning experience, one actor witnessing two seasoned performers at the height of their control. On red carpets and in brief press exchanges that followed, Reeves continued to speak about Keaton in practical terms. He described her professionalism, her kindness on set, and her generosity as a collaborator. Al Pacino, who shared one of the most significant personal and professional relationships of her life, acknowledged her as a rare presence whose intelligence and emotional depth elevated everyone around her. Meryl Streep highlighted Keaton's individuality, noting how she changed expectations for leading women by refusing to conform to traditional roles or appearances. Jack Nicholson, her longtime collaborator, also recognized her instinctive talent and sharp wit, recalling how her presence brought balance and humanity to every scene they shared. He noted that working with Keaton always felt natural, never forced. Directors who worked with her, including Nancy Meyers, spoke about her professionalism and generosity on set, describing an actor who arrived prepared, engaged, and fully committed to the story, rather than her own image. Younger actors and filmmakers also shared their admiration, pointing to Keaton as proof that longevity in Hollywood could be built on substance rather than spectacle. Across these tributes, one theme remained constant. Dianne Keaton wasn't just admired for what she did on screen, but for how she carried herself off it. What do you think about Dianne Keaton and Keanu Reeves' friendship? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.